I have just played for you Invention number 10 in G major by Johann Sebastian Bach. Bach wrote his inventions for his children to teach them about the elements of music. In this invention number 10, he's teaching about broken chords and the ways that you can break a chord. Many ways. He's also taking small melodic fragments and weaving these together with broken chords in a seamless tapestry for the entire piece. This is a conversation. All the inventions are conversations between two hands, two voices, soprano and bass, and they speak to each other, balanced and respectful, imitating each other, taking turns, and creating in this piece a beautiful and lilting dialogue. I love this piece. It makes me happy and it lifts my spirits. One of the things is the key, in the key of G major, which sounds like this. Here is the chord of G major. Broken chord. Here is the scale. We have our first note of G, which is the tonic, B is the median, and D is the dominant, and that's how you make a triad. But he's breaking the triad. And in fact, in measure 1, listen to these 9 notes. This is in 9/8 time, so there are going to be 9 eighth notes in every measure. He starts with the soprano for measure 1 like this. Already we have 3 different ways of breaking this chord. The first 3 beats go from the root to the median to the dominant. The next 3 beats go the middle note, the bottom, and the top. And the last 3, middle, bottom, and the tonic again up an octave. That is your subject. In the very next measure, the other part, the bass, enters with almost identical material, with one important difference. It begins not on the tonic chord of G major, but on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 5th scale degree, making a chord here, the D major chord. So that's what we hear in measure 2 for the bass, the subject on the D major, on the dominant. This is called an answer. And listen to what Bach does for this. Did you hear the difference there? That last note was a different interval. The first measure was the upward octave. The answer was an upward 7th. That's the only difference. Then the next measure has a very beautiful. Do you see what I mean about these chords? These broken chords. What's he doing in measure 3? Well, the soprano is taking this, and the bass is taking this. The G major, and together these are actually making a dominant 7th chord, which must, or wants to at least, resolve to C major. And that's exactly what he does. And here is the resolution. You can hear that sounds like C major. Now let's put the parts together as written for the first several measures. I think I'm going to take the first 6 measures. And I would like you to listen for the direction that these broken chords are going. If they're going from top to bottom or bottom to top, or whatever combination you can hear, because that's all part of this wonderful tapestry. Here we are from the top. Slowly here on measure 4 with the right hand alone, we have E at the top. The next measure 5, we go down a step to D at the top. And the next measure 6, down another step with C on the top. Now what we have are a series of 7 chords. This is called a sequence, when material repeats exactly the same, just down a step, down a step, down a step, or up a step, up a step, up a step. And the purpose is to modulate, to take us to a new key. The bass here in measure 4, 5, and 6, which is our first sequence, starts on the C. Now here's one of these melodic fragments leading to the B. Another melodic fragment up to the A, up to the G. Now let's put these hands together slowly here and listen for the broken chords and the melodic fragments that in this case, well, let's do this first. Let's do this. I'm breaking this down into 2 elements. Next measure. Next measure. They're like mirror images. They're coming towards each other and away from each other, towards each other and away. This is how to practice this. Now I stopped on the 7th beats. We're going to play now beats 7, 8, 9, 1, measure 4. Measure 5, and measure 6. Do you hear the patterns? Now, one thing that Bach is doing is creating a distance of a 10th, starting here in this measure 4, between the bass and the soprano, C to E, B to D, A to C. And if I continue, measure 7, and measure 8, and measure 9, and measure 10 would be this, but it's actually this. So these were all 10ths descending stepwise. These are what I call the anchor notes. And hearing this interval of a 10th is going to be very helpful for you in learning the piece. So now I'm going to play the anchor notes, which is the first beat of every measure. Let's listen to this a little bit faster, just the anchor notes. And then filled in with the other notes. See if you can hear these coming down in steps. This is a good way to memorize this piece. First the anchor notes and then in context. He's moving us. Where is he moving? If we're in G major and we know a sequence modulates, where is he taking us? I'll stop and then see if you can figure out the key area where we are when we stop there. new happened. This, I just was astounded that Bach is putting two sequences back to back. The first one had these. Those descending dominant 7 chords. That's what that makes. And then we get to measure 7 and we have a new pattern. A new melodic fragment that goes up. And then the bass answers. That's beautiful. And the bass in measure 7 for this sequence starts on the G and goes downward for a short little melodic fragment. And now the 4 notes going up. That's just the melodic fragment. Now let's take the broken chords, which happen on these beats. Going up a 6th here. This happens to be a second inversion of E minor. Then the next one, that happens to be a second inversion of D major. And then this one is a second inversion of A, which is the dominant of D. So there's a lot to this with these first 2 sequences. And to finish out the first section of this piece now, I'm going to start at measure 10 with the right hand. And we have another and without a doubt we have arrived on the dominant D major by way of a scale. And the left hand has also the scale. So you'll really want to practice those 2 measures, measures 12 and 13. This is the cadence. From each other, and now here this is a 12th right here, ending with 2 Ds, 2 octaves apart. Let's back up a little bit here and talk about these intervals of the right hand in measure 10. That's up a 5th. The next measure 11. Up a 6th, 1 bigger. And measure 7th. So you can feel the expansion. 5th, up a 6th, up a 7th. The left hand at that point, measure 10. Up a 4th. That's another sequence. And then the long extended scale. Up another 4th. Lots of 4ths there. So I would like to now play this last 7 measure system for you, so that you can appreciate all of these intervals and the directions of converging parts and diverging parts. Mirror images, sometimes parallel images, broken chords, and melodic fragments, all leading us to a new key of D major. Now I'm going to show you what I'm looking at here. It's really a thrill for me to show this today. This is a brand new engraving that I made using public domain music. All the notes are exactly the same. I have just re-engraved this note for note, looking entirely different than any other music you'll find, because I put this on the 11-inch by 17-inch wide horizontal landscape format. And this, I decide how many measures to put on each system. System 1, System 2, System 3, which we just finished, and System 4. And I make these decisions based on the musical content and phrases as I hear this piece, as I hear any piece. You can see a lot of colors on this. The entire main file that has all of your notes, it looks like this. And you will get these colors in another form just going through the PDFs that come in your complete chart package, which you can get from my website sellingchristianmusic.com as digital downloads. You simply take your PDFs to a printer and have them printed on this beautiful 60-pound cardstock. This is how your main file will come. Black and white, clean, lots of open spaces, system 1, 2, 3, and 4. Ornament boxes here throughout to show you how to correctly play your ornaments. Here's your page 2. Very exciting. You can see on page 2 here that there is a long, uninterrupted trill for the right hand and then for the left hand. And that's a moment in the piece that is not only challenging, but it's thrilling to play. And I can't wait to work on that with you when we get to that part in the lesson. And then your other PDF, there are 3 in this chart package. The main file, the satellite view, also black and white. And this now shows the entire piece, all of those 2 pages of systems I've put on one board. So you can get the feel of this piece. Once you've learned your notes, you can put this up on the music and see how close to memorized it is. But the one with the colors, and those of you that have worked with my charts understand and love, as you have told me, and I've so appreciated hearing, that this color structural analysis is really extremely helpful. I love making these. This is really where all the work and understanding and deep appreciation of what goes into each one of these pieces. It all happens when I make the color structural analysis. You'll notice on the right hand side here I've got numbers. Those are the number of measures per system. 3, 3, and then that long 7, 4, 2, 4, 3, and 6. You see the key code here that the subject in red, measure 1, had that subject built on the triad of G, and the answer in the bass coming 1 beat later on the dominant. That's the beginning of fugue writing. And Bach is also giving a little glimpse into what's coming. In fact, Invention 15 is a true fugue and uses the subjects and the answers and counterpoint. But this is just a little sneak preview of the element of a subject and an answer, which we find in fugues all the time, color-coded in a red and a blue. Soprano starts here, and the bass answers here. Then we have our first sequence of these bass notes the downbeat notes, all making the interval of a tenth. Let's follow this. Measure 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 are all tenths. And then third, 10th, 10th, 12th, and 2 octaves. Those are your anchor notes. We're at the pretty much almost the midway point of the piece here. New key area of D major dominant, and this time the bass gets the subject in red and the soprano answers with the answer. New key area, D major and A major, another sequence, and then here are the spectacular trills and the wrap up. And this I found fascinating. Haven't seen this really in any of the other inventions. The subject and the answer are both taken by the soprano for this last time. So you have soprano bass, bass soprano, soprano soprano, and those are marked in the red and blue colors for you. The sequences, there are 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then your wrap up. Okay, so we'll come back to this if we need to in the lesson, but that's so helpful to get the overview of the piece, I think, and where it's going. You know, what I'd like to do is talk about, before we start at this new D major section with the subject and answer for the second time, let's just back up and do that last 7 measure system 3 with the anchor notes of the tenths, so please hear these. Another tenth. Another tenth. 12th. Octave plus an octave. 2 octaves apart. That will help you so much. So now here we are, new key area in the dominant, and the bass takes the subject as we know it. And then the soprano answers a fifth above on the A major as we know it. And then for this next measure, Bach is doing a different, he's departing. He's repeating that subject idea with a slight change. He takes the 7th on that one, and the soprano answers. So we have this, measure 14, measure 15, that's the full chord it makes. Measure 16. That makes this chord. Do you feel that that wants to pull to the G? And it does. Do you hear how that wants to pull to C? And it does. At the top of our page 2, this measure 18, that's exactly the downbeat. Measure 4 at the same 2 pitches for the downbeat, modulating temporarily to what we hear as a C. This I have not seen this. I have actually explored all 15 of the inventions, and I'm soon to make teaching videos on the remaining few that I am in process working on now. And I really love doing this comparative work of all 15 of them, because then I know when he's done something that he hasn't done before. And this is a case in point right here, your system 2, with this first sequence starting on E and C, a tenth apart, and your system down, your sequence down here, just a 2 measure sequence. This was a 3 measure. But the pitches are the same, E and C. This one is just farther apart. The first one is this distance, and the second one, this C goes down an octave. But we still have the same descending tenths. He hasn't really moved, has he? He's come right back to the same pattern. So let me now play this starting measure 14 straight through so you can feel this dominant 7 chords modulating and changing. Each chord is modulating to the next one, to the next one. And now he does the sequence. Those are all the hidden chords in here. Now, taking the full part of this right hand. Now in measure 18, I'm taking the hands alone here. And this is my hope here. My preparation for this lesson has been to demonstrate in some detail how I would recommend that you practice this in learning your notes. This is not a very hard piece. You could do, this is one of the easier inventions, and it's good news for a lot of people that are early intermediate students. This is a lovely, lovely piece to play. I have had tremendous joy playing this piece. And if you take the steps of how to approach it, of analyzing it as you learn it, it will be thorough and well learned and well played. So here we are with the soprano, with the second sequence of these descending tenths, up the octave, and then the 4-note fragment going up another octave. The bass here, down a seventh, down a seventh. So we could take this into the 2 different ways that I showed you earlier. Or we could take the last beats, break it down into tiny little nuggets like this to train your ears. Then you put it all together, come it together, and now parallel, mirror images and parallel. Four-note ascending motive. Down. Now you know what he's doing here. If I play my pitches, this is starting in measure 20. I'll show you my music here. Starting right here, we have, this was that second sequence here with those tenths, and here's another sequence. So in the piece he's got 2 sequences back to back, 2 on page 1, and then here are the 2 on page 2. And these downbeats that I have circled in yellow are actually making something that Bach uses a lot. I'm going to play it for you and see if you can figure out where Bach is taking us with this. I'm going to double the downbeat that the left hand plays with my right hand as an octave. Ascending fourths. If we reverse that, A, D, G, C, it's the circle of fifths. Those are interchangeable. The circle of fourths, circle of fifths, depending on which direction you go. But that's what he's using here. the A. And the 4 notes going up to the D. So you can anticipate the direction of this line, knowing that these are ascending fourths. The next one has to be G. There it is. Now he changes the direction here and goes to the E. Breaks out of the pattern a little bit. And to the C, which is the one we want. And what I love about this is we've got, that would be straight fourths, but he's doing, do you hear what he did? A C major triad. He's building the subdominant chord of C here for these bass notes. And then what would have to come is the D and then the G. A great big 4, 5, 1, and that's exactly what's in here. All right, now comes the extended trill. And when I learned the notes on this piece, it went together very quickly, except for the extended trills. And this was the part that I struggled with, really, for months and months and months. So as written now, I'm going to play it first at finished tempo so you can hear what these extended trills sound like. And the reason we need them is because the only note in the right hand is a dotted half note tied to a dotted quarter note. Let's see this music here. The note plays on the C here, ties, 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 drops down to the B, plays once, and ties all the way through. Now that note is not going to sustain very well, just played once here with all these notes below, unless we help the pitch by building a trill over it. And that's the point of this extended trill, is to keep the pitch going. So we hear the two parts, that the one single note of the soprano doesn't die. So we have to have a long trill here. With the two measures preceding this long trill, here we have the top of page 2 as written. There's the 10th. I did the whole thing there. As you heard, the trill shifted from the soprano then over to the bass. Now these trills are measured. We have 2 notes for the right hand for 1 note of the left. And when you start your piece, this is how you'll do it. Now at the segue here, this is what I do. I do an ascending trill to dip down. And I find that very beautiful. That's a valid way, and even in the manuscript of this invention, there's a little squiggly thing right there. And I think perhaps that's what he meant. Something happened there rather than just... But when you first learn it, don't put that in. But after that becomes fluent, you can add that little... Now to do this trill, this is one of the hardest things I'll get into. There are 2 elements to doing a fast, light, even, measured trill. The little flutter fingers that come down from the knuckles, like little ballerina fingers, like that, and wrist rotations, like that. This is very, very difficult. When I was a child learning piano, I couldn't do this. And I asked my teacher, how do you get a fast, light trill? And she sort of showed me, but it took really years of playing before I could do it easily. So please don't get discouraged if this doesn't come right away for you. This is one of the longest things to learn technically in playing the piano. It just takes a long time to have a light trill. We don't want it to overpower that left hand. So let's watch this technique now. And I also kind of make it a little higher rather than for some trills I go low and use the 3-1, but that's not this kind of trill. This is not a shimmering trill very, very fast. This is a measured trill. So I want to lighten up the hand, pull it up a little bit, get on my tiptoes, and flutter fingers. That one I do use the 1-3. And all together here. And this line in the soprano. It's the first time in the piece we've had that kind of writing without any broken chord. Just all melodic writing. And he does that at the end of the piece, all melodic writing. Which brings me to one of the things that occurred to me as I was working on this piece in G major and thinking about the great works that Bach wrote in the key of G major. Of course, the Goldberg Variations comes to mind. This is a work I know very well and have performed and recorded. G major is a sublime key for Bach. It's grounded, it's rooted, and he uses it for high spiritual ideas. You know, his music was all for the glory of God. And in the year 1723, when all of the 2- and 3-part inventions became organized in the official autograph copy, which is what we use today from that year 1723, Bach wrote another work in G major the same year. It was the Jesu joy of man's desiring, the chorale from Cantata 147. Now, can't you hear that in this piece? All of that and these wavy melodic lines. And the end. That's Jesu joy. It is for me. And that helped me to decide, what is the character of this piece? That's one approach, is everything mellifluous and fluid and uninterrupted lines. I like that very much. It's valid. Now, how I have played this up until now, and this is getting into another element in interpretation, which needs to be said, and that is the articulation, the touch. In playing Bach is not indicated. Bach has not made any indications. The notes are just straight eighth notes. No phrases, no staccati. Sometimes he'll have little tiny slurs. He will do that. But this piece can be phrased in little groups of 3, which is how I have played it up until now. because of these lines of the little melodic fragments. Ya-da-da-dee, ya-da-da-bee. I thought that was so beautiful. I wanted a little bit of a lilt to it, but that is completely subjective. There's no one right way, and there really isn't a wrong way. There's a wide range, is what I'm trying to say. And as far as dynamics, the forte piano, you can do that subtly. As far as using pedal, I haven't used any pedal in this piece. I'm using less pedal now when I'm playing Bach than I used to. But touches of pedal are absolutely okay to warm up a note and to make something carry, like on these trills. No, I don't use pedal here. Here. What was that? First inversion of D major. So there is our 5 right there. And the left hand, gorgeous chords. And there's the modulation and the return of our material. And this measure 27, the last system of the piece, is exactly for the right hand like measure 1. Identical. Let me hold up this CSA. It's another reason I liked to make the color coding here of the subject and the answer. This measure 1, right hand, and this measure 27, right hand. Absolutely identical. Remember I said the answer now comes right away? Same voice. How high we are there. There's the AC joint. And there's the triad. How beautiful is that? A descending broken G major chord for the soprano and the bass ascending. Such a wonderful 6 measures here. Let's take this right hand alone. We're concluding here with the piece. Up the octave and up the 7th. And now a little series of yada da yada da yada. You know, here's the scale. And I put these concluding scale passages happen twice in the piece. And I put them in the green box. Here we are at the end of the piece with concluding scale passages. Here we had them as they were modulating in the D major scale to the new tonic area of D major. Straight scale passages, in this case in contra motion, and in this case the scale passages is just in the soprano. But he's ending the big sections with scale passages. And here. So there's such enormous symmetry and balance and logic in Bach's compositions. And you could see this right here. You could meditate on this. I do. I look at these and I just listen to the whole piece. I watch it without playing a note, and I go through the entire piece from the CSA. Okay, so now the right hand alone on this last 6 measures. Measure 27, last subject entry, soprano. And right away, answer. He could have ended right there. That's the G. E, D, G. So practice that alone. Just this. See these beautiful 9 beats. I like to sing too when I'm practicing, to get the intervals and the melodic lines really internalized in my body, and then that comes out when I'm not singing and playing. That same joy and a fully expressed love that happens when we sing with our full hearts, our hearts open. Left hand, bass, measure 27. That was technically a little hard for me, so pay attention to that jump there. Now, scale degrees of G, A, B. If he went up, it would be E, but he goes down. He goes the first scale degree, the second scale degree A, the third scale degree B, and down a 7th to the E, which is the 6th, and then tonic, dominant, tonic. Those anchor notes. Contraimotion, contraimotion, contraimotion. So this direction of the parts of contraimotion is a way that the voices are speaking to each other. When you mirror somebody in a conversation and you mirror their expression in agreement with them, nodding and smiling, that's what it is when we have mirror images with the piano. The voices are saying, yes, yes, that's right. That's one interpretation here. How they're really acknowledging and speaking, and sometimes they'll go arm in arm and they'll go parallel. But feel the joy of this in your body, the direction of these parts. And I did this in the CSA. I put these little arrows. If you come in close and look at these are those contraimotion elements. Down for the soprano, up for the bass. Happens 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And they're very helpful, like this ascending, ascending, ascending. And contraimotion here. This goes up, this goes down. The thing about, I wanted to say one last thing about scales. And playing your C major scale, you think you're taught always, oh, we'll start with no sharps and flats. Well, that's a hard scale for a beginner. But if you play in contraimotion, it's easy because the fingerings are the same. And so a lot of this, the fingerings are going to be more similar if it's contraimotion. So it fits the hands nicely. This piece is really, really fun to play. We're still just coming off of this tremendously challenging COVID-19. We've all been in for over 1.5 years and isolating and not seeing each other. And so I turned to Bach and these inventions. And I would play this every day, this G major invention, and without fail, I always felt better after I played it. Just locking arms with Bach and getting that bath of his divinity and the lightness and the mirth and the joy. It's almost foolproof. It's going to make you feel better. So I hope you learn this piece. I hope the lesson has been helpful for you. And I wish you great, great joy as you play this piece. Thank you.